It's cold today in the Northwest. Hi, it's Farmer Ann. So, today, yeah, I was talking about the rehabilitating the cacao orchard, and cacao is a tree. It's the pods, which look kind of like this. I have to do my lawyer thing and say this is copyright protected. What I'm about to show you, here's the word cacao, but the picture, the drawing that I'm about to show you about of a cacao pod is copyright protected by Sydney C. DeBaca of Chavez's Garden, 2014. So that is a drawing of a cacao pod. This pod is about, well, it can be 4 to 6 inches long, and it's kind of like a football, little football. And inside, and this is a cross-section illustration of that, but inside you see those little white things with the brownish tinge inside, which is an artist's liberties. They don't look like that always. Sometimes they're purple, lavender, light purple. Those are the seeds, and they do in fact grow in rows like that. And so this is the cross section if you cut the pod open, which you don't want to do because you would damage the beans. Oh, here. Okay, so here's that. There, that's an actual, this is my cookbook I'll tell you about another time, but that's an actual photograph of a pod from our farm. There we go. All right, and that's a cacao tree. I'll try and get some more pictures next time of cacao trees. But at any rate, the trees, the pods grow on the tree, on the trunk and the vertical branches. The horizontal branches we cut because they don't produce fruit. And on our farm, we have a rule. If you're not producing, you're out of here, whether we're pulling you out or making you produce. So the cacao trees were functioning well. They were healthier and happier. And Mom had found through a lot of work and talking to a lot of people, a person who bought wet beans. So those white beans that I showed you in the illustration, when you pull them out, they're covered with this delicious, like you have never tasted anything so sweet and fruity. It's kind of melon and a little citrusy, with a perfumey kind of quality. And it's this sweet flesh. It's kind of like a soft mango. It's kind of just a little fibrous, but not unpleasantly, and very soft and very juicy. And that lives in between the beans inside the cacao pod. And it only really tastes good straight out of the pod. I've tasted, I don't know, 5 or 6 different ways that people are trying to, good for them, trying to capture that flavor. And the closest that I've tasted is a company, I think in Guatemala, that takes the white stuff and freeze dries it, which really locks in the flavor. It doesn't have the juiciness, but obviously, but it still has the essence of the flavor. Oh yeah, a little weird thing about me and flavor. I'm a super taster. We were growing up, we had a lot of information and we were challenged to use our very strong brains, thanks genetics and my parents' genetics. We were encouraged to use them. When we didn't know a word, we had to go look it up in a dictionary, huge dictionary. We had hard copy encyclopedias in our home, and we read them like other kids read storybooks. And I remember I was going somewhere with that. I lost my train of thought. Anyway, so the cacao orchard had been rehabilitated and we were harvesting on a routine basis. So part of what is interesting is our new processor would take the wet beans from us in buckets. We would supply them in buckets, and she would then do the next two processing steps on her farm, which are fermentation and drying of the beans. And I will go into much more depth about all of that and how that all works later. But the essence is that we began to get feedback from Ginny, our lovely processor. And she would say, "Oh, your beans are just so beautiful. They're so big and luscious." And my mom, who's a sociologist, oh, that's where I was going with this a little while ago, was a sociologist. She worked in research and healthy aging, kept data, loves data. She kept data on the trees. She kept data on the cacao trees. So we numbered them all. And she kept how many pods we harvested and how many pounds that produced. And that number was represented in a ratio. And the mean is around 3.4. And we were routinely above 5. So we knew we were getting bigger beans per pod or more weighted beans. Anyway, it was a very positive thing that Ginny taught us about our beans. I think that relates back to the facts that our trees were neglected for 7 years and they were stressed. And now that somebody was taking care of them a little bit, they were really putting out because they wanted to reproduce and make more trees. Well, more on stressed trees later.